I checked our savings before bed. Then I saw $9,000 gone. Did something come up? I asked. He didn't answer right away. I handled it. But the transactions kept coming, small, then bigger. I stayed sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, staring at the numbers like they would fix themselves if I waited long enough. They didn't. I checked again. The $9,000 withdrawal was there. Clean. Final. No note. No conversation. Just gone. And it wasn't the only one. I started scrolling back. $1,200. A few days earlier. $800. The week before. $2,500 labeled as a transfer. All going to the same account. My chest tightened, but not in a dramatic way. It was quieter than that. Like something slowly settling into place. Justin, I said again, softer this time. What is this? He shifted onto his side, already half turned away from me. I told you. I handled it. You handled what? He didn't answer right away. Then, bills. Stuff. That's not a bill, I said. We don't have bills like this. He exhaled like he was tired of the conversation before it even started. Why are you making this a thing? Because it is a thing, I wanted to say. Because money doesn't just disappear. But I didn't say it like that. I'm not making it anything, I said. I'm asking what it is. Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said, do I have to run every decision by you now? That landed heavier than it should have. Not because of the words, but because of how easily he said them. Like we weren't a team anymore. Like he had already decided that part without telling me. I looked down at my phone again, then back at him. No, I said. But this is our money. He didn't respond. Just lay there, staring at the wall like the conversation was over. That was the moment I stopped pushing. Not because I wasn't curious. Because I already knew pushing wouldn't get me the truth. The next morning, everything felt normal. That's what made it worse. Justin got up before me like he always did, made coffee, got dressed for work. He even asked if I wanted anything from the cafe near his office, like nothing had happened. I watched him move around the kitchen while I sat at the table, my phone next to me, the bank app still open. Do you want anything? He asked again. No, I said. He nodded like that was fine, grabbed his keys, and left. No tension. No argument. No explanation. Just gone. I waited a few minutes after the door closed before I picked up my phone again. The numbers were still there. They didn't look different in the morning. I opened the transaction details. Same account number. Same routing. No name attached. That part bothered me more than the amount. It felt intentional. Like whoever it was going to, wasn't meant to be seen. I sat there longer than I needed to, staring at it, replaying the conversation from the night before. I handled it. Bills. Stuff. Do I have to run every decision by you now? None of it matched. Justin used to over-explain everything. Even small things. Especially money. He was the one who insisted we track spending when we first moved in together. Back when we had less. Back when every dollar mattered. I was the steady one. The one with the consistent paycheck. He bounced between jobs for a while, trying to figure things out. Sales, mostly. Some worked, some didn't. I covered more than my share in the beginning. Rent, groceries, utilities. It wasn't even a conversation back then. It just made sense. And I never held it over him. Because eventually, he figured it out. He got into recruiting. Started doing well. Then really well. The first time he brought home a bonus bigger than my monthly salary, he laughed about it. Pulled me into the kitchen and spun me around like we had just won something. This is it, he said. This is what I've been trying to get to. And I believed him. I was proud of him. But somewhere along the way, that pride turned into something else. It wasn't sudden. It never is. It showed up in small ways. Comments about how I played it safe. Jokes about how I didn't take risks. Little things that sounded harmless if you didn't think about them too long. I don't know how you do the same thing every day, he said once, leaning against the counter while I packed lunch for the next day. It's called stability, I said. It's called boring, he replied, smiling like it was a joke. I laughed it off. Because that's what you do when you don't want to turn something small into something bigger. But sitting there that morning, staring at the missing money, those moments didn't feel small anymore. They felt like a pattern. I went to work like I always did. Same routine. Same desk. Same system of counting, verifying, logging. Numbers made sense there. They followed rules. At the bank, if something didn't add up, you found out why. You didn't just ignore it and hope it fixed itself. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to that account. The way it didn't have a name. The way Justin avoided answering. Around midday, my manager, Philip Murphy, stopped by my station. You good? He asked. Yeah, I said automatically. He looked at me for a second longer than usual. You seem distracted. Just tired, I said. He nodded, like he didn't fully believe me but wasn't going to push. Take your break, he said. You've been here since open. I thanked him and stepped outside, sitting on the bench near the entrance. I opened my phone again. Same transactions. Same account. I hovered over the number like it would suddenly reveal something new if I stared hard enough. It didn't. I thought about calling Justin, asking again, but I already knew how that would go. I handled it. So I didn't call. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I checked our full account history. Not just the last week. The last few months. At first, everything looked normal. Groceries, gas, rent, regular transfers. Then I started noticing it. Small amounts at first. $300, $450, $600. Always spaced out. Always going to the same account. My stomach dropped, slow and heavy. This wasn't new. This had been happening for a while. I leaned back against the bench, staring up at the sky for a second like I needed something to steady me. It wasn't just one decision. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. A quiet one. The kind you only see when you stop trusting the surface. And that's when the thought hit me. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just clear. This wasn't about money. Not really. Money was just how it showed up. Whatever this was, it had already been happening long before I noticed. And I was just late to it. I went back inside, finished my shift, and didn't say anything when I got home that night. Justin was already there, sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Same as always. Hey, he said, not looking up. Hey, I replied. I set my bag down, walked into the kitchen, and started making dinner like nothing had changed. Because for him, nothing had. But for me, something had shifted. I just didn't know how far it went yet. Or who that account really belonged to. And for the first time, I didn't feel confused. I felt certain. Something was wrong. And whatever it was, Justin wasn't going to be the one to tell me. So I stopped waiting for him to. I didn't confront him the next day. Or the day after that. That probably sounds strange, but once I saw the pattern, I stopped thinking like a wife and started thinking like someone who works with numbers every day. You don't jump to conclusions. You observe. You verify. You wait until the picture is complete. Justin, meanwhile, acted exactly the same. That was the part that made it worse. He still left early. Still came home late. Still asked normal questions like, did you eat? Or do we need anything from the store? Like nothing had shifted between us. But I started noticing things I hadn't before. Not big things. Small ones. He started dressing differently. Not dramatically, but enough. New shirts that actually fit him properly. Shoes he used to say were a waste of money. A watch I'd never seen before. New. I asked one night, nodding toward his wrist. He glanced down like he forgot he was wearing it. Oh. Yeah. Work thing. What kind of work thing gives you a watch? He shrugged. You wouldn't get it. It's just part of the environment. That phrase stuck with me. Part of the environment. Like he had stepped into a world I wasn't part of. I didn't push it. Instead, I kept watching. The late nights became more frequent. Dinner with clients. Networking event. Team drinks. Always something that sounded just real enough. One night, he came home smelling different. Not like alcohol. Like somewhere expensive. Clean, sharp, unfamiliar. Long night? I asked, keeping my voice even. Yeah, he said, dropping his keys on the counter. You know how it is. I did know how it was. That's why I knew that wasn't it. At work, I started using my breaks differently. I wasn't just checking balances anymore. I was tracking. Dates. Amounts. Patterns. Every transfer went to the same account. Same routing number. No name attached. And the timing? Almost always after one of his late nights. I wrote it down once, just to see it clearly. Late dinner. $1,200 gone. Networking event. $800. Client meeting. $2,500. My stomach tightened every time I added a new line. It wasn't random. It lined up too cleanly. By the end of the week, I stopped needing to write it down. I already knew what I would find. That weekend, Marie came over. She dropped her bag by the door and immediately looked at me like she already knew something was off. You look exhausted, she said. I'm fine, I replied automatically. She raised an eyebrow. That means you're not fine. I gave a small laugh, but it didn't land. We sat in the living room, the TV on but muted, neither of us really paying attention. After a minute, she said, okay. What's going on? I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her. Because saying it out loud would make it real in a way I couldn't take back. Money's missing, I said finally. How much? About 9,000. Recently. Her expression changed immediately. Recently? And smaller amounts before that. She sat up straighter. Julia, that's not something. That's a problem. I know. Did you ask him? I did. And? He said he handled it. Marie stared at me for a second, then let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Handled what? Exactly. She shook her head. That's not an answer. I know. Then why are you sitting here like this is normal? I looked down at my hands. Because I don't think it's just money. That got her quiet. What do you mean? She asked. I exhaled slowly. It's the timing. The way it lines up with when he's out. The way he avoids answering. It doesn't feel like a one-time thing. Marie didn't say anything for a moment. Then, carefully, do you think he's doing something? I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't have proof. Just patterns. I think I said slowly that whatever he's doing, I'm not part of it. That was the first time I said it out loud. And once I did, I couldn't take it back. Marie leaned forward. Julia, you need to confront him. Not yet. Why not? Because right now, he thinks I don't know anything. And that's the only advantage I have. She frowned. Advantage? This isn't a game. I know, I said. But if I go to him now, he'll just shut down. Or lie better. And you think waiting is better? I think understanding what's actually happening is better. Marie studied my face for a second, then leaned back. I don't like this, she said. I don't either. But I get it. That was all she said after that. When she left, the apartment felt quieter than usual. Not peaceful. Just empty in a different way. That night, Justin came home later than usual. I was already in bed, the lights off, pretending to be asleep. I heard the door open. His footsteps. The soft sound of keys hitting the counter. Then silence. For a moment, I thought he had gone straight to bed. But then I heard it. His voice. Low. Quiet. Talking to someone. I couldn't make out the words at first. Just the tone. Soft in a way I hadn't heard in a long time. I sat up slightly, careful not to make noise, listening harder. Yeah, I'll figure it out, he said. Pause. No, it's fine. She doesn't, he stopped mid-sentence. My chest tightened. She doesn't what? No? Notice? Care? Another pause. Then he laughed. Not loud. Just enough. I told you, I've got it handled. Handled. The same word. Over and over. I didn't move. Didn't make a sound. I just sat there in the dark, listening to the man I had spent years with talk to someone else like they were the priority. After a minute, the call ended. I heard him move around, then finally come into the bedroom. I laid back down quickly, closing my eyes. He got into bed beside me like nothing had happened. Like we were still the same. But we weren't. I could feel the distance between us, even without looking. Not physical. Something else. Something quieter. Final. And lying there in the dark, I realized something I hadn't fully accepted before. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was confirmation. Not of what exactly, but of enough. Enough to know that whatever was happening outside this apartment mattered more to him than what was inside it. And I was the only one still pretending we were the same. I didn't confront him right after that phone call. I thought I would. I even rehearsed it in my head the next morning while brushing my teeth. Simple. Direct. No emotion. Who are you talking to? Where's the money going? What is actually going on? But when I saw him standing in the kitchen, pouring coffee like it was just another normal day, something in me held back. Not fear. Clarity. Because I realized something I hadn't fully accepted yet. If I asked too early, I'd only get the version of the truth he was ready to give me. And I wasn't interested in that anymore. So I waited. And the more I watched, the harder it became to ignore what was right in front of me. The next few days, Justin barely seemed present. Physically, he was there. Sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, answering when I spoke. But mentally, he was somewhere else. He smiled at things that had nothing to do with me. Checked his phone constantly. Even laughed once, quietly, while we were sitting in the same room. I remember looking at him and thinking, I don't know where you are anymore. Not physically. Just where your attention lives. By midweek, I didn't need more clues. I needed confirmation. So I did something I hadn't done before. I followed the pattern. Thursday night, he told me he had a client dinner. Same tone. Same casual delivery. Don't wait up, he said, grabbing his jacket. I won't, I replied. And I meant it. I gave him 10 minutes after he left. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. I wasn't proud of it. But I wasn't confused anymore either. I kept my distance, staying a few cars back, telling myself I could turn around at any point. I didn't. He didn't go downtown. Didn't go anywhere near the places he usually mentioned. Instead, he pulled into a parking garage near a part of St. Paul I barely recognized. Quieter. Cleaner. More expensive. I parked across the street and sat there for a second, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than I realized. This is where you stop, I told myself. This is where you turn around and pretend you didn't see anything. But I was already out of the car before I finished the thought. I followed him inside, keeping my distance. He walked like he knew exactly where he was going. No hesitation. No checking directions. Like this wasn't new. Like he had done this before. He got into an elevator. I didn't. I waited. Watched the numbers go up. Then I took the next one. My heart was beating harder now, not fast, just heavy. Like every step forward was confirming something I couldn't undo. When the doors opened, I stepped out into a hallway that didn't feel like anywhere we belonged. Quiet. Clean. controlled. I saw him at the end of it, standing outside a door. And he wasn't alone. She opened it before he even knocked. Like she was expecting him. She was exactly what I thought she would be. Put together without trying too hard. The kind of presence that doesn't need attention because it already has it. She smiled when she saw him. Not surprised. Familiar. Hey, she said, soft, like this was routine. Hey, he replied. And then he stepped inside. Just like that. No hesitation. No looking around. Like he didn't have anything to hide. I stood there longer than I should have. Long enough for it to stop feeling like a possibility. And start feeling real. I didn't knock. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even get closer. Because I already had what I came for. Proof doesn't always look like what you expect. Sometimes it's not dramatic. Sometimes it's just obvious. I turned around and walked back to the elevator. My hands weren't shaking. I wasn't crying. I felt steady. That was the strangest part. Like something had finally settled into place. When I got back to my car, I sat there for a minute, staring straight ahead. No thoughts. Just quiet. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. I already knew what it was before I looked. I opened the app. $2,100 transferred. Same account. Same pattern. Same night. I let out a slow breath and leaned back against the seat. There it is. That was the moment everything connected. The late nights. The missing money. The way he stopped explaining anything to me. It wasn't random. It wasn't work. It was her. And for some reason, that part didn't hurt the way I expected. Not yet. What hurt was how easily he had stepped into something else. Like this life with me had already been closed in his mind. Like I just hadn't been informed yet. I drove home slowly, not because I needed time, but because there was no urgency anymore. Whatever this was, it wasn't new. I was just catching up to it. When I walked into the apartment later that night, everything looked the same. Same couch. Same kitchen. Same quiet. But it didn't feel the same. It felt like a place I used to live in. Not somewhere I still belonged. Justin got home a couple hours later. I was sitting at the table, a glass of water in front of me, my phone face down. He walked in like nothing had changed. Hey, he said, setting his keys down. Hey, I replied. He loosened his jacket, moving around the kitchen like he always did. How was your night? I asked. Good, he said. Just dinner. Nothing crazy. I nodded. Busy? I asked. A little, he said. I looked at him for a second longer than usual. You seem tired, I said. Long day, he replied. And that was it. That was all he gave me. I could have said it right there. I saw you. I know where you were. I know who she is. But I didn't. Because in that moment, I realized something that changed everything. He wasn't hiding it well. He just didn't think I was looking. And that meant something more dangerous than cheating. It meant he had already decided I didn't matter enough to notice. So I didn't confront him. Not yet. I just nodded, stood up, and said, I'm going to bed. Okay, he said, already checking his phone again. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't questioning anything. I knew exactly what was happening. I just hadn't decided what I was going to do about it. And that part? That part mattered more than anything he could say. I didn't confront him the next morning. Or the next week. By then, it wasn't about catching him anymore. I had already seen enough. What mattered now was what I was going to do with it. And for the first time since all of this started, I stopped reacting and started thinking ahead. Justin didn't know I knew. That was the only thing I had. So I kept everything the same. Same routine. Same conversations. Same quiet dinners where he talked about work and I nodded like it all made sense. If anything, I became easier to be around. I didn't question his late nights anymore. Didn't ask about the money. Didn't even look at his phone when it buzzed. And I could tell he noticed. You've been chill lately, he said one night, leaning against the counter while I washed dishes. About what? I asked. I don't know. Everything. I shrugged. There's nothing to fight about. He studied me for a second, like he was trying to figure something out, then nodded. Yeah, he said. Exactly. Exactly. That word stuck with me. Because for him, everything was working. No conflict. No pressure. No accountability. Just a clean path out. I let that sink in. Then I started preparing. The first thing I did was separate what was mine. Not dramatically. Not in a way he would notice. Just slowly. I opened a new account under my name only. Moved my paycheck there. Left the joint account active, but stopped relying on it. I didn't touch his money. Didn't move anything that would raise questions. I just stepped back. The second thing I did was document everything. Not for revenge. For clarity. Dates. Transfers. Amounts. Every time he left. Every time money disappeared. Every time the pattern repeated. It wasn't emotional. It was clean. By the end of the second week, I had enough to stop pretending this was a misunderstanding. It was consistent. Deliberate. Sustained. That's when I contacted Ann Richardson. She wasn't a lawyer, but she handled divorce case coordination through a firm nearby. A friend of a friend had recommended her a while back, just in passing. At the time, it felt unnecessary. Now it didn't. I met her during my lunch break at a small office building near the bank. She was straightforward. No small talk. "What's the situation?" she asked, pulling out a notepad. "My husband is moving money without telling me," I said. "And I'm pretty sure he's seeing someone else." She nodded like she'd heard that exact sentence 100 times. "Do you want to fight it?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. Fight it how? Assets. Accounts. Infidelity. You have options. I thought about it for a second. About the account I had seen. About the door I watched him walk through. About the way he said, "I handled it." "No," I said. She paused. "No, I don't want to drag this out. You understand that means you might walk away with less." "I know." She looked at me carefully, like she was trying to figure out if I understood what I was agreeing to. "Then what do you want?" she asked. I answered without hesitation. "I want it clean." She nodded slowly. "All right." From that point on, everything moved faster than I expected. Paperwork. Financial summaries. Account breakdowns. Justin didn't question any of it. That was the part that almost felt surreal. When I brought up divorce, he didn't argue. Didn't deny anything. Didn't even pretend to be surprised. He just accepted it. "Yeah," he said, sitting across from me at the table. "That probably makes sense." Probably makes sense. I watched him for a second, waiting for something else. An apology. An explanation. Anything. But there was nothing. Just relief. "I don't want this to get messy," he added. "We can do this the easy way." The easy way, I repeated. "Yeah. No lawyers dragging things out. No fighting over everything." I nodded slowly. "That works for me." And just like that, it was decided. No arguments. No negotiations. Just done. He made a list of what he wanted. The car. Most of the savings. Some of the furniture. Things I would have fought for before. I agreed to almost all of it. Not because I didn't care, but because I understood something he didn't. What he was taking wasn't what mattered. "Are you sure?" he asked at one point, looking up from the papers. "You're being really reasonable about this." Reasonable. I almost laughed. "Yeah," I said. "I'm sure." He nodded, like that confirmed something for him. "Good," he said. "I don't want to feel like I screwed you over." That was the first time I almost said it. You already did. But I didn't. Because saying it wouldn't change anything. And I wasn't trying to change him anymore. I was just stepping out of the way. The day he moved out, it didn't feel dramatic. No last conversation. No final moment. He packed his things, loaded his car, and stood by the door for a second like he was waiting for something. Maybe a reaction. Maybe a reason to feel guilty. I didn't give him one. "Take care," I said. "You too," he replied. And then he left. Just like that. 9 years reduced to a quiet exit and an empty apartment. I stood there for a while after the door closed, listening to the silence settle in. It didn't feel like loss. Not yet. It felt like space. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for him to explain anything. Because I already knew everything I needed to. He wanted more. More money. More status. More of whatever that life represented. And I had already seen where that path was going. So I let him take it. I didn't warn him. Didn't try to stop him. Didn't even make it harder than it needed to be. I just let him go build the life he thought he deserved. And I stepped out of it completely. Not because I was weak. Because I was done competing with something that was never mine to begin with. And deep down, I knew something he didn't. That kind of life? It doesn't stay easy for long. And sooner or later, he was going to find that out on his own. The first few months after the divorce looked exactly how you'd expect. Perfect. At least from the outside. I didn't hear from Justin directly, but I didn't need to. People talk. Even when they don't mean to. And then there's social media. At first, it was constant. Photos of places I had never been to. Restaurants with names I couldn't pronounce. Trips that looked expensive just from the lighting alone. He was dressed better than I had ever seen him. Tailored shirts, watches that actually matched his outfits, the kind of confidence that doesn't come from comfort, it comes from trying to belong somewhere new. And her. Catherine Morris. Always just slightly in frame. A hand on his arm. A reflection in glass. A tagged location that made it obvious they were together without saying it outright. It was curated. Clean. Intentional. And, for a while, it worked. I'd be lying if I said it didn't get to me. There were nights I sat in my smaller apartment, scrolling through those pictures longer than I should have, asking myself the same question in different ways. Was I too passive? Did I walk away too easily? Should I have fought for more? For him? For the life we built? Because from where I was sitting, it looked like he traded up. And I just stepped aside. But then things started shifting. Not all at once. Small changes. The posts became less frequent. The captions shorter. The smiles a little less convincing. If you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't notice it. But I was. Because I wasn't looking at the surface anymore. I was looking for patterns. Just like before. The first real sign didn't come from social media. It came from Brandon Wright. I ran into him outside the bank one afternoon. He used to work with Justin, same recruiting office back when things were stable. "Hey," he said, recognizing me immediately. "It's been a while." "Yeah," I said. "Have you been?" We exchanged the usual small talk. Work, life, nothing important. Then he hesitated. "You still talk to Justin?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not really." He nodded, like that confirmed something. "Yeah." I figured. "What?" I asked. He shifted his weight slightly. "Nothing. It's just, he's been moving around a lot." "Moving around?" "Jobs," he said. "He's switched a couple times. Things haven't really stuck." I didn't react right away. "Recruiting's like that sometimes," I said. "Not like this," Brandon replied. That was all he said. But it was enough. Later that night, I thought about it longer than I expected to. Not because I was surprised. Because I wasn't. That kind of lifestyle, it requires consistency. Not just money, but stability. And Justin had never been good at sustaining something once it stopped being new. A few weeks after that, I noticed something else. No more travel posts. No more expensive dinners. The locations changed. Less polished. Less curated. Still nice, but not the same level. Like the pressure had shifted. Like something was adjusting. And then, one night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second before opening the message. "Hey, it's Justin." Of course it was. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit. Not out of spite. Just to see how it felt. After a few minutes, I typed back. "Hey." That was it. No questions. No emotion. Just neutral. He replied almost immediately. "Hope you're doing well." "I am," I said. "Hope you are too." There was a pause. Longer this time. Then he said, "Yeah, things have just been different." Different. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the screen. "What kind of different?" I asked. Another pause. Then, not exactly what I expected. I didn't ask him to explain. I didn't need details. Because I already understood what that meant. The lifestyle. The pressure. The expectations. Trying to keep up with something that was never really built for him. I could picture it clearly without him saying a word. Splitting things he couldn't comfortably afford. Trying to match a pace that didn't slow down for him. Being in rooms where he constantly had to prove he belonged. And Catherine? She wasn't going to adjust for him. People like her don't build their lives around someone else's limits. They expect you to meet them where they are. Or fall behind. "Yeah," I replied. "That happens sometimes." He didn't respond right away. Then I've been thinking about things. I didn't ask what things. Because I already knew where that conversation could go. And I wasn't interested in reopening something I had already closed. "I hope you figure it out," I said. That was it. No invitation. No door left open. Just distance. He didn't push. Just said, "Yeah, me too." And that was the end of the conversation. After that, I didn't hear from him again. Not directly. But I didn't need to. Because the pattern was already clear. The same way it had been at the beginning. Only this time, I wasn't the one trying to understand it. I was just watching it play out. Now, a year and a half later, my life looks nothing like it did before. And I mean that in a quiet way. Not dramatic. Not impressive from the outside. Just stable. I moved into a smaller place by choice. Not because I had to. Because I wanted something that felt manageable. Predictable. Mine. Work got better. Philip Murphy promoted me a few months after everything settled. Nothing huge, but enough to make me feel like I was moving forward instead of just recovering. My routines became mine again. No tension. No guessing. No wondering where money was going or who he was talking to when he stepped out of the room. Just clarity. And the strangest part? I don't feel like I lost anything. For a while, I thought I did. Thought I gave up too much. Too easily. But now, looking back at it, I see it differently. I didn't lose him. He chose something else. And I chose not to follow. I stepped out of a race I didn't even realize I was being pulled into. He wanted more. More money. More status. More of that life. So I let him have it. I didn't warn him. Didn't try to pull him back. Didn't expose anything or make it harder than it needed to be. I just let him walk into it. And from where I'm standing now, it looks like he's the one dealing with the cost of that decision. But sometimes I still think about it. Not with anger. Just curiosity. Should I have said something? Should I have tried to stop him from going down that path, even after everything? Or was stepping aside the only way I could finally choose myself without getting dragged into something I never wanted? I don't know. All I know is this. I stayed quiet. I let it happen. And somehow, I ended up exactly where I needed to be. But I still wonder, was that strength? Or was that just me walking away before I had to fight?